Welcome to another edition of WRAL Triangle and Two. I'm Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, Luis Fernandez. Luis, loaded pod today, and I want to get right into it. You were in Durham Saturday, Cameron Indoor Stadium, and I want to go to the moment that everyone's talking about in college basketball this weekend when Blake Hinson steps up on the scorer's table in front of the Cameron Crazies. What was that moment like?
So it's if you watch the broadcast, you see my yellow hoodie I was wearing pop up at the very end of it in the corner. I was filming. And I mean it was wild. It is exactly what you would expect it. But that's what's so cool about college basketball is when you get moments like that. It actually reminds me a bit we got a really good college basketball last week in the Triangle, especially, right? Where you had what's his name? DJ Horn, flipping the double birds. You had Blake Hinson doing that after going 7 of 7. It's okay. It's sports. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be over the top. And it was a huge moment. It was just really big. The commentary from Duke afterwards, I felt was they said what they needed to say, right? Which was John Shire saying, apologizing to the fans, saying that's their fault. Stuff like that isn't supposed to happen. You're supposed to defend home court, not give them the opportunity to do something like that because you beat them, right? Kyle Filipowski said, hey, it's whenever someone was in Cameron, it's their Super Bowl, it's their championship game. So those things happen. He said it was disrespectful, but it just reminds us that we have to defend our home court, is what he said. And some people called that soft. I don't necessarily agree with that. What else is he supposed to say, right? I think if something can be disrespectful without being bad, if that makes sense. What I mean by that, Mark, is that it is a disrespectful gesture, but it's not like he's saying, oh, he shouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of moments of disrespect. And if you express that disrespect in sports, you have to earn that disrespect. And Blake Hinson went 7 of 7 from 3, tying an ACC record, I believe, for made threes without a miss. It was just, he was unconscious. It was crazy.
Yeah, the first time Pitt has beaten Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium since 1979. Year 2 of John Shire, coming off a year where in his first year, undefeated at home at Cameron Indoor Stadium, now with 2 losses after Saturday night's game. And just that image is what sticks out to me. And I know a lot of the Dukes fans were giving their version of the horns down gesture, if you know what I mean, Luis.
Yes, I do. I do. We had to find a creative way to try and blur the Cameron Crazies when we put the video up on
I don't wish that upon anyone. It's just oh, I missed one right there in the corner. And it's what do you do?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I said, it is what it is. That's what sports is. I think when you look at the game itself, Duke dropped, I believe it was 4 or 5 spots in the AP poll, I want to say.
I've got that information in the notes, Luis. UNC now up to number 3. We'll get to the Tar Heels in just a second, but Duke now dropping to number 12 after the loss on Saturday.
Yeah, so, I mean, the thing is, I think it's all about context, right? No Jeremy Roach, no Mark Mitchell. Mark Mitchell, they've kind of gone back and forth with not having this year. He's had some lingering knee issues. The most recently, the knee injury. But the Jeremy Roach loss, that really hurts Duke because he is that guy when you are in need of a bucket, you just give him the ball and say, hey, go do it, go get it. The way he's able to create in the mid-range is really good. I mean, he's I think they're leading scorer. No, Filipowski's the leading scorer. I believe Roach is second
2 and 3. And I tried to warn you last week, Luis, when we recorded on Wednesday of, hey, keep an eye on the knee injuries for both players. I tried to warn you last week, and you could go pop on the tape where it's maybe you could say I jinxed Duke. I'll take it. But I tried to tell you exactly what was going to happen.
Fortunately for the Blue Devils, Shire said that they are getting closer. There just wasn't enough time. After the game on Saturday, he said that they just both hadn't had a chance to do 5-on-5 yet. And that was really what was keeping them off the court. They play at Louisville tomorrow night. So we'll see how the Blue Devils rebound. Because when you look at the actual game itself, Mark, they didn't rebound super well. They were -7 in the rebounding differential. And it's just, I mean, Pitt was absolutely on fire. They were 10 of 20 from 3. This is back-to-back games now that Duke has allowed a team to shoot 50% or better from 3. And both of those games, you had 10 or more threes made. They gave up, but Georgia Tech was 11 of 20 from 3 against them, and Pitt was 10 of 20 from 3 against them. So the question is, what I want to see now from Duke is this the start of a new trend? Were those kind of just like some, blips on the radar? How is Duke going to improve their perimeter defense? Because you're not going to win many games when you don't have 2 of your best players. You give up 50% or better from 3, and you don't out rebound, your opponent. It's still early, right? You still have a month and a half or so before the postseason, but it's starting to get to that point where you're like, all right, Duke, let's see if you can figure this out.
Keep an eye on that. Lewis, final question on this game too. What are you, like a men's medium, men's large? Get you a Blake Hinson jersey. I know you're a UNC guy.
No, okay. First, capital J journalist, but no. First off, I wish I was a men's medium. Are you kidding me, Mark? I'm an XL. I'm an XL, but no, it's wild because Blake Hinson's also I think he's a super senior. I want to say he's 24 years old. And so there were a couple of times where you're watching and you see, Jared McCain, and Blake Hinson kind of going up against each other. You're like, man, this is like a freshman versus someone who, has to worry about filing for health insurance, separate from parents type thing sometimes. So it's a little bit wild to see, but him and the Panthers they played that get under your skin, type cards so well. They were like the perfect balance of villains who could back it up in that game. It was exactly the energy you need when you play Cameron.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to like music festivals a year or 2 from now when you'll get a UNC fan behind the enemy lines in Durham, or maybe a North Carolina Duke game, and you see a Hinson jersey out there from just a troll North Carolina fan. I can't wait for that day, Lewis. We need to move on, though.
If you spend money on a Blake Hinson jersey just solely for the purpose of trolling, that is, we need to talk about how you spend your money.
It's petty. It's petty. All right, UNC, speaking of the Tar Heels, hosting Wake Forest tonight. And the Tar Heels up to number 3, Lewis, but it's a quick turnaround. 3 games in a matter of 6 days. Are you worried about the trap game tonight at the Dean Dome in Chapel Hill?
So I don't know if I would necessarily call this a trap game, because I think it's very much on UNC's radar, right? Wake Forest is playing very well. I think they are, I want to say like 38 right now in KenPom. They're 36. They have a lot of talent. It's just a matter of, putting it all together now, right? They're 2-2 in their last 4. But I think Wake Forest has the potential to be a very good team. They've shown out on some occasions. So I don't know if it's necessarily a trap, but I do think it's a difficult game for those reasons that you put out there. I mean, 3rd game in 6 days. You saw UNC, you saw UNC let Louisville come back in there a little bit on, what was that, Wednesday. So it's going to be interesting for Carolina, that's for sure. What are your initial vibes off for this game, Mark?
I'm just curious to see how long this streak can go for, and it's just like I'm looking at the schedule where it's like, where are the games you slip up? Now for tonight, Wake Forest has 5 double-digit scorers, so and then is playing a lot of games consecutively. Does that wear and tear, does that play a factor at any point? You're a 7.5-point favorite at home tonight. I'd imagine the Tar Heels win, but I said this last week of, does North Carolina and Duke go into the first Battle of the Blues meeting? I believe that's on February the 3rd. It's the first week, Saturday. First Saturday in February is how long can you carry the win streaks into? Duke now has lost and they've fallen to the AP poll, but as you get closer and closer to number one with North Carolina, when you're the top dog in the conference right now by 2 games heading into tonight's game, you're going to get everyone's best effort too. And what I mean by that is opponents are going to circle that on their calendar where you're going to be targeted. And we saw how North Carolina dealt with that last season compared to where they're at this season. And this season, they're just playing a lot better basketball, and they're playing basketball that people are accustomed to that are Tar Heels fans.
Yeah, it's going to be – so if we talk first Wake Forest, right, the one conversation that I feel like keeps on coming up about UNC is their defense and how much better they're playing defensively. On KenPom right now, I think they are the number 4 overall adjusted defense, or they're number 4 overall in adjusted defensive efficiency. And it's this 3-point shooting defense streak that has been, a little bit absurd for the Tar Heels. I'm going to run down, right? So they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row, I believe, right? And so is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
you got it right.
8 games in a row. And during that stretch, okay, the very first win in that stretch was against Oklahoma. They go 7 of 23 from the outside. Okay. 10 of 25. Pitt goes 10 of 25 from the outside. Okay. And then starting with Clemson, you've got 5 of 29. NC State, 1 of 18. I'm sorry. 5 of 29 for Pittsburgh. NC State or Clemson 1 of 8. NC State 1 of 18. Golly, words are tough. Pittsburgh was 5 of 29. You've got Syracuse was 4 of 19. Louisville made 8 of 18. Boston College 3 of 17. And so you've got a lot of these. The 3-point defense has been really, really good for UNC. The question that people are asking is that people aren't making shots, or is that what UNC is specifically doing in terms of defensive rotations, in terms of closing out and things like that?
What do you think it is, though, Lewis? If you're asking the question, if you had to pick one, I mean, you can't say a little bit of both, but if you had to pick one side or the other, what would you pick?
I think I want to say that their defense is just better overall. It is. Their defense is much better overall. I think the 3-point defense is legit. I don't know if it is this legit. And what the litmus test is going to be is tonight. Because Wake Forest, their top 4 scorers all shoot at least 39% from 3. They're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country. I think their 3-point field goal percentage is 10th in the country, I want to say. Hold on, I just wrote it down. They shoot from 3. They shoot 39.3% as a team from 3. So it's really going to be tested against the Demon Deacons. And so we're going to find out a lot about it tonight, I think.
Not just that, but for Wake Forest this season, year 4 of Steve Forbes, the head coach there, they haven't made the NCAA tournament under Forbes yet. So it's this is a big game where it's do you want to break that streak? Go on the road, beat number 3 North Carolina in state. Big game tonight, Lewis. Any final thoughts, and then we'll get to some football action.
I just that I think Wake Forest is going to come with haymakers in this game. Like you said, they need the signature win. They've been on the bubble with Steve Forbes a lot. Steve Forbes is a good coach, but they got to get over that hump. And they have a lot of talent on this team. There are some interesting matchups with UNC, so I'm excited to see it. I think it'll be a good game.
All right, Lewis, I got a fever, and the only prescription is more football. Down to 4 teams, AFC Championship, Chiefs, Ravens, NFC, 49ers, Lions. Who do you like to win the Super Bowl now that we're down to 4 teams, Lewis?
I mean, I think it's not a unique thought. My favorite is Baltimore.
Wow,
and
okay.
I think that I don't think that's a unique thought. You have an first team all-pro quarterback, and you have a number 1 scoring defense, one of the best EPA defenses. Here's a stat for you. I saw this in an ESPN article. So I apologize for not giving the exact author, but it was from ESPN. Only 3 teams in the past for the NFL have had a first team all-pro and a number 1 scoring defense. They're the Ravens are the 4th team to do that since 1970. All 3 teams have won the Super Bowl. So Lamar Jackson is what was that one quote? I like my quarterbacks to be more quarterbacky. He's very quarterbacky. Lamar Jackson is proving to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, if you didn't know that before, you just don't know ball. But I think it's going to be so exciting to watch him and Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. It's going to be a really good game. But I think it's got to be the Ravens. Right? Is there someone else you're thinking, Mark?
I think it's going to be 49ers and Chiefs, and I'll take the 49ers to win the Super Bowl.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's just like the conspiracy theorist in me is like the NFL's got to get Taylor in the big game and all the cameras. And like, I don't know about you, but like it felt like Travis Kelce was just showing off for his girlfriend in that Bills game last night.
Travis Kelce he needed that bad. The Chiefs needed that bad because he's been struggling a little bit this year. 2 touchdowns it was good for him.
That's the thing that made no sense watching that Bills game was like the Chiefs offense has been bad this year. Like Mahomes has the most drops of any quarterback in the league. And it's like, listen, he can't throw the ball to himself. And the Bills, I mean, you had the fake punt where they're not able to convert, even though Kansas City only has 10 players on the field. McCole Hardman fumbles in the end zone. It's like the Bills had every opportunity. The kicker goes wide right, which was exactly like the Super Bowl back in the day. And it's like reliving history. What a tortured fan base for Buffalo. And it's like the analogy I'd make to you, Lewis, for people that like no sports. Wide right in yesterday's playoff game was like if the Boston Red Sox fans had to relive Bill Buckner 35 years later and they still hadn't won. Like that's what we're talking about in terms of what happened in last night's game when the kicker misses a 44-yarder wide right.
Jim Nantz crushed that call, by the way. It was so good. It was so good. I think so much of it was just the Bills defense has been all season so hurt, so injured. And that's what ended up happening. That's what, kind of came to pass for the Bills was the Chiefs were able to do what they wanted because that the defense was limited and because Patrick Mahomes is, the best quarterback in the NFL. That's because I like that we're kind of, crisscrossing a little here when it comes to who we think is the best team right now, because I will say this, right? And you following the Steelers a lot, you understand this too. The Ravens defense is so good. It is so good. And the Chiefs defense is also so good. So it's going to be 2 really good. You're getting 2 high-level defenses and you're getting 2 high-level quarterbacks playing on the field at the same time in Baltimore. I think it's going to be huge. I say this, though. The Chiefs defense, if there's one place to attack them, it is in the running game. They are, I think, 26th in EPA on designed runs. And so, Baltimore has great balance. They can run the ball very well, whether it be with the running backs or whether it be with Lamar Jackson. And this to me just feels like the moment when the Ravens finally get over that hump with Lamar, get to the Super Bowl. And I think Patrick Mahomes is a magician, but there's a big difference between doing what he did against the Bills and doing what he did against the Ravens.
That's well said, Lewis. Where I'm at is this: in a big game, do I trust Patrick Mahomes more than I trust Lamar? And that's where I'm like,
fair.
Every year Mahomes has been a starter the Chiefs have played in the AFC Championship. That is crazy.
He can't keep getting away with this.
The AFC Championship is the Patrick Mahomes Invitational, straight up. And even if Tyler Bass had made the field goal, 2 minutes left and 2 timeouts, Mahomes is going to go down and the Chiefs get the game-winning score and the Bills lose in even more heartbreaking fashion. And, Mark, why do you say this? Well, just a year ago, he did it and he had 13 seconds left on the clock. Yeah. So he can't do it with 2 minutes left. It's like, and I thought that this was the game for Buffalo. Joe Burrow's hurt. This is going to be their year. And it's like
they were one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs. If there was going to be a year where this iteration of the Buffalo Bills was going to get over the hump and finally beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, it felt like it was going to be that game last night, but it wasn't.
But yeah, so until Mahomes proves he can't do it, I'm not going against him. So it's like it's an oversimplification because, and I will concede, in yesterday's result didn't make any sense. I liked Buffalo in yesterday's game going in. But it's just like I've seen this again. They flipped the switch, and I'll say this too. Isaiah Pacheco just
I was about to say the same thing.
He runs mad.
I think it was the Chiefs game, like one of the last Chiefs games of the regular season, where he had like one of those long runs, and someone overlaid it with like cartoon running music because he runs mad, but he also runs like kind of like a cartoon character. It's so funny. It's such a very unique running style, and he's so good at it. When the Chiefs needed to pick up a first down, and I was okay, this is over because Isaiah Pacheco is not going to get tackled, and lo and behold. I will say this though. Me going Ravens is less doubting Patrick Mahomes and more, appreciating what Baltimore is doing right now.
If you go through the overall body of work this season, I get your argument, Lewis. I do have to ask you about the NFC. Who do you like there?
Yes. So the NFC is a little more of it's interesting because I think that the 49ers will win because I just think that they are going to, the Lions have been in some tight games in the playoffs. Obviously, but the 49ers only played one game so far and it was tight, but I just feel like watching the Lions all season, there was more volatility. You saw them go up and down a little bit more. Their style of play just led for closer games, whereas the 49ers have been like the model of efficiency and consistency. So I think last time I checked the line, and we're recording this on January 22nd, I think the line was like San Francisco -7. I don't know if that's one of those things where I'm like, yes, but at the same time, I can very much see the Lions making it closer because the defense is not the standard San Francisco defense that we're used to. They are good against the pass, obviously. They have a great pass rush, but they are susceptible to the running game. And when you've got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery with the Lions, I think that's a great place to attack. Jared Goff has played well. The Lions do play a lot differently on the road than they do in Detroit. That is, I think, an important point. And then if Deebo Samuel does not play, I also think that is a huge, red X on San Francisco. When they struggled midway through the season, the two players that were not playing were Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams. And that is when they struggled the most. So you'll still have Trent Williams, but Deebo brings the physicality. He brings an explosion to that offense that Brandon Ayuk is having his best year, but it's just Deebo brings a little bit extra oomph. But as long as Christian McCaffrey keeps doing his thing, that's also hard to combat.
Can you imagine if the Lions make it to the Super Bowl?
Isn't it wild? I love it. If it were up to me, if it were up to me, you would have like the all the teams that have never won a Super Bowl. I just want to rattle them off one after one.
Like,
after one.
If it could have been Lions and Bills, it would have just been like
been great
for the ratings. It wouldn't have been good, but just for like someone who's just like sees tortured fan bases year in and year out, like seeing the Lions home field advantage the last 2 weeks has been special because you're talking about, okay, the last time they've hosted playoff games, the last time they've won playoff games, they've won a playoff game for the first time in our lives, Lewis.
Yeah.
For the first time in the last like 30 plus years. I think it was 91.
Yeah.
Neither of us were alive.
No. That's I feel like this bond of Big Cat love. You know what I mean? Because I am a Bengals fan, for those of you who do not know. And so the Bengals essentially did this like 2 years ago. And so it's so cool to see a team that has not had a lot of postseason success string it together, have a magical run, and kind of awaken that. And I think it's awesome to see. I will be rooting wholeheartedly for the Detroit Lions. But it'll all come down to, can you stop Christian McCaffrey? Can you run the ball well? And, can you force Brock Purdy into negative game script situations where it's third and long, when, they are down in the game, when they're forced to pass a lot and the run isn't as effective or as important. Because that's not just with Brock Purdy, that's just the Shanahan offense in general. You put them in negative game scripts, and it is a lot more difficult for them to do what they like. The only problem is the 49ers are like the most efficient offense in the NFL this year. So, well, good luck.
Allow me to add one to your list too, Lewis.
Yeah.
You can bite off more kneecaps than your opponent as well.
What a legend. What a Detroit legend Dan Campbell has turned into. I was watching that press conference. I was like, when he first was introduced, I was like, oh man, I don't know about this guy, man. I don't know about this. But what he's done, and what Detroit in general, their general manager, what has gone on, it's a really fun thing to see.
More than just a rah-rah coach, in all seriousness. Cannot wait for the conference championship games. And I'll say this too. This is my final thought with the NFL playoffs before we sign off here. Just give us Chiefs and Bills every year in the playoffs. Just do it. Pencil that in. The two teams I know will play in the 2024 regular season, but come postseason, Mahomes and Allen, I'd love to see Allen just get one on Patrick Mahomes. It's almost like the modern day Brady versus Manning, but the game always lives up to the bill every single time. Pencil it in. Give that to us in the playoffs, because yet again, we had a classic on Sunday.
This is my bias kicking in, Mark. I just want to throw this out there. I don't think Mahomes and Allen is Brady Manning. I think it's a very good matchup. I don't think it's that. I think that I would agree in that situation that Mahomes is the Brady, but I also think you gotta remember Joe Burrow. People are forgetting that the Chiefs and the Bengals met 2 years in a row in the AFC Championship game. But
look, we could talk till sundown about this too, but add CJ Stroud to that mix. If the Chargers finally get it right with the head coach, with Herbert, like we talked about this before the start of the season of, okay, what are the Panthers are going to do at quarterback in the NFC? We talked about there's like the elite of the elite in terms of quarterbacks in the AFC compared to the NFC. But I mean, we've talked about this before, Lewis, is my point.
My very last thought, and this is one more kind of hot take. Mahomes is going to get his. He's already got, 2 rings. He's probably going to get a couple more in his career at least. But when you look back on this generation of quarterbacks, especially in the AFC, I think you're going to have a lot of guys who would have won a lot more rings if they played in any other time frame, because you're going to have a lot of quarterbacks, I think, who are just going to cannibalize at each other's postseason success. You're going to have 1 year, Mahomes, will win it again, I'm sure, very soon. And then you're going to have 1 year where Allen finally breaks through and maybe the Bills get it. And then you're going to have 1 year when CJ Stroud upsets the party. And then maybe Trevor Lawrence figures it out. And then maybe Joe Burrow gets his. And then maybe Justin Herbert and the Chargers figure it. Like, you're going to have a lot of and that's not even including the next iteration of quarterbacks that are coming into the league as this generation gets older.
Arch Manning.
Enough said. Don't even need to say anything else.
Lewis, this has been another edition of WRAL Triangle and Two. If you like this show, tap the subscribe button on the 99.9 The Fan YouTube page. 5 stars and 5 stars only on Apple and Spotify. Lewis, always a lot of fun chopping it up with you. And enjoy the game tonight, UNC against Wake Forest. I'll sign off for the both of us. For Lewis Fernandez, I'm Mark Bergin. Thanks for watching WRAL Triangle and Two.